So as a student who has come here and received so much in terms of peace and really everything that's of real value, I want to ask, what can I do in return? What can I do for you?
Well, the purpose and the flow, right? The Tao of this, the Dharma of this is to put into practice good spirit nature. See? That's the purpose. Yeah. Is to continue. Say, be a part of the positive continuum. That this is, basically, but maybe for some people ultimately about. See? So one can say you come here for a demonstration because you see things going on here that have a certain quality to them. You don't hear arguments here particularly. You just naturally don't come here for that. Fighting, skirmishes, bruises. MMA interest. Right. Yeah, no, you come here for hearing into and seeing into what can be most productive in a creative sense for you and others. Huh? That's what the example is for. That's what the language is about. Accessing creativity as a flow. That is something you have to kill yourself to get to. That means opening beyond yourself, and that would imply your neurosis, your struggling self, your conflict self. See? So that you can become more a conductor of light. That's our potential as spirit beings. See? Not just practicing Buddhists or Christians or Hebrews, see? Or Muslims. Or just yogis. We're here to be the light and sound of itself, say, for all beings. And enter the ways of mastery, or the mastership, which equals no suffering, which equals awakening. And being of whatever relative service you can be to those who come your way or cross your path. That's plenty. That's plenty to accomplish. I think we might call it mission impossible. Yeah. So bringing yourself to the healing that enables you to heal others, or not heal others. Compassion is giving others a space to heal. And then if the psychologic situation warrants it, then you'd say, well, you're suffering. If you can share it selflessly, in a manner of speaking, or scientifically, put it differently, say, yeah, well, this could be much easier. And then you might ask the person, what's easiest for you? To breathe easy and get your job done, or be overly concerned or overwhelmed by psychoneurotic programming and not get the job done at all. And continue on the path of medications and therapy, which is the first step for many people who are walking towards the spiritual path but may not get on it. So, even though we're all spirits, doesn't mean we're on the spiritual spirit path as much as the karmic spirit path, say, relative to our ancestral lines and their programs. So.
Where does your need to help other people come from, if you would even call it a need?
Well, it's the need to help other people is, we can say it's an eternal heart need. It comes from the heart. See, it doesn't come from the self. See, it doesn't come from the self. See, it doesn't come from self or other. See. Mm-hmm. It's already born of compassion. We'd have to say it's transcendent compassion, and that's all pervasive compassion. See? So it's like in the air. It's in the air of compassion. It's in the ocean of compassion. See? Where there's a recognition outside of the person, outside of the familial, with what the suffering of others smells like, looks like, tastes like, sounds like, and is. Yeah. So the need for peace is really the basis for that. We need peace. See, so having done yoga, experience the purpose of yoga, which is relaxation, and knowing that it's really a first, foremost. Yeah. Then that's basically the message for the people. See? Consistent with the Four Noble Truths as a system where you assume responsibility for what you create. That it's there because you allow it to be there, and as soon as you see what it is to undo, what the causes are, then all of that disappears. Yeah. It's up to the individual to get to that point where they see that they are part of the effect of what we're talking about, and that they can be the cause of going beyond that, instead of the cause of being caught up in it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So this doesn't begin or end with our friends and our immediate family. This is huge. It's a huge wave. It doesn't begin or end with the earth, right? So it's part of a cosmic reality that we are part of, and then there's an inner dimension of it that we are also part of, the inner spiritual cosmic reality, see, which is the solution to what it is at the cosmic level that shows up as a problem, the problem of not knowing the inner spiritual reality, see. Or let's say the illusion of separation. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Comment. Mm-hmm. So then it's to be and not to be the illusion of separation. So it's not to suffer it. And that could also be the paradox of appearance. To be or not to be, or to be and not to be, at least and not to be. The paradox of appearance. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You use the word, or the phrase, don't believe it, in terms of your own experiences. When certain things show up, you just, it's not a problem, you don't believe it. You don't have to believe it.
Right. Whatever don't believe means, right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So can you...
Yeah. Self-explanatory. Don't believe it. It's that simple. Very direct. What appears, don't assume it's any more real than an appearance. It's that simple. It's that direct. So. And everything that appears is already disappearing. So there's the wisdom to it right there. Everyone who appears is already disappearing. There's the wisdom to it right there. Okay. And everything that appears is already disappearing. There's the wisdom to that right there. Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So in terms of the spiritualist dogma and practice, it's always about spirit first. Spirit first and last. That you have your fullness at birth, your spirit then, and your perfection then. And that's not unlike the Buddhist teachings as well, that Buddha nature is also kind of like always the case. Always here, already gone. And so we're talking about differences then are relative to the individual and how they need to be informed or awakened by this, that, or whatever. See? Along their sort of trajectory or projection along the time-space world track. We're in the time-space world, so say human beings, all agreed upon to be on Earth at this point, for better and for worse reasons, and we're seeing both of these manifest to the extreme right before our very eyes as we live day to day on so-called surface of the Earth. See, with our fellow human beings showing up like actually worse than Tyrannosaurus rexes. There's something a little bit understood in our psyches about our ancestral connections with Tyrannosaurus that enables us to forgive Tyrannosaurus for being Tyrannosaurus, more so than humans for being or trying to be as, let's say, dignified as a Tyrannosaurus rex was in terms of its lunch.
Seems like when I'm playing drums or music, in whatever instrument, my kind of spiritual path and needs relative to that seem to show up very clearly. And
what is your spiritual path relative to music?
Well, it seems
or what is your musical path relative to spirit?
They're one and the same for me.
In your question?
Yeah.
If they're one and the same, does that mean that where you are musically, that's where you are spiritually?
I don't know. Could
obviously not. Of course not. No.
Is this?
Yeah, they're two separate tracks of reality. You can have deep understanding in terms of your spiritual nature and have peace with that, but you may not be able to play to the same degree of contentment. Yeah. Or using sports as an example, find fulfillment in some kind of athletic activity or some other physical activity as much as you can in your understanding of what you need to know about your spirit. Yeah. There could be some correlation between the two. So, in other words, you might have a perfect understanding of the spiritual in a manner of speaking, but not be operating at the level of perfect musical or athletic excellence or perfection. You might not be able to arrive at that, see, as easily as in your mind. And it's not. The body's not like that. The physical is not like that. Because you have people who are in the athletic realm and in the musical realm, and they can be grand masters compared to others, and they say they haven't gotten there yet. They're not there yet. And then on the spiritual level, you say, well, where's there to get to? Yet from the musical level, it's very clear. Okay? So they're two different realities. And related, because it has to do with what you're doing and what you're being and how you're relating to it. And one may have more to do with expectation than the other. One may have more to do with desire than the other. And one may have more to do with ambition and accomplishment than the other. Comment now.
Yeah.
Your question now.
Does something showing up in that way through music, does say an impediment, a pattern, a non-productive pattern on the drums need a musical solution, or is that something that is...
Could be. That's a question mark. See, that's a real question. Or a question mark. I don't know that it's a question. It depends on your state, see. Because for me, one drum beat is enough and perfect. See. One note is enough. Perfect. See. Or it may take a symphony to accomplish the same degree of perfection. That's huge. It's monstrous. See. The same with the drums. How much is enough? How big is enough? See? Big enough. See? And how deep is deep enough? See? And if there is no, let's say, disparity between your spiritual understanding and your music, then it's like no questions. Right. Let's say the question, because you're saying they're on the same level, so they're the same thing. Which doesn't make sense, but it can make sense to you, and that's all that should matter to you. Now, how you would compare your level of music, if you would venture that far out, relative to, let's say, deceased known artists, and their level of accomplishment, it's up to you. It's how you feel about you and wherever they were at and wherever you might be needing to be at. Say, only you, the individual, can determine whether you've reached that level for yourself or not, and whether that level for yourself is what you're looking for, or hoping for, or expecting of yourself, or not. See, again, however you play the drums is however you play the drums. There's a perfection in that. See. Now, how you play the drums relative to other people, and playing in public and being judged by other people, that's a whole other thing. See. And whether or not you would feel good as a drummer being compared to other people. No one says that needs to happen, but that's usually what happens, because in this field, you're always compared to someone similar or better or known, and so on. And whether or not you can handle that comparison, who cares? As long as it works for you, it's done. That's easy. Comment. Yeah.
I honestly think that the reason I still play music is because it seems very direct in terms of having, it's very direct practice, spiritually speaking.
We don't know if it's spiritually speaking, but we're saying psychophysically speaking.
Okay.
Right, it's a spiritual, it's a whole other thing. It's related, but it's not the same as a psychophysical need to have to play.
Okay.
That's not what the spiritual is, in a sense. See? See?
At least, maybe to phrase it differently, it gets me in front of my holdups easily. And
That's psychophysical.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like food, psychophysical. You need food. See? And that's what carries you through the day. The right food, the right chemistry. So psychophysically you can operate and function. That's part of music, but that's not necessarily part of the spiritual of it. See? See? That's part of the materialization that manifests music. See? The body. The music comes through the body. The body has to be working for the music to come through in a certain way. Depending on what your idea of music is, of course. But you as an individual, soloist, playing your drums the way you play your drums, who cares? It's like self-therapy, as you're saying. Self-therapeutics. Perfect. Self-healing, self-medicating. No problem. Nobody else's business. So that's not really a question of music. It's a question of what you do. What's with a musical instrument? In your private domain, it's whatever it is for you. If it feels good, as a healing, let's say, dynamic of your purpose, and you're wanting to function as a human being in a human world with, let's say, human responsibilities and, say, interrelationships with people. Yeah, whatever you need to do to chill yourself out, I highly recommend it. And if it's music, it's great. Playing for yourself, I think that's very important. Bringing that up to another level, it's a whole other set of considerations. Right. But if it is perfect for you, there's nothing that needs to be said about it. Except you're lucky to have it and to enjoy it the way only you can enjoy it. In terms of certain practices, including musical practice, as a private meditative practice, yeah, you have a right to that. You have a right to the privacy that sometimes requires, so as I would like to call it, a right to aloneness. See? And so I'm not saying the right to loneliness, I'm saying the right to aloneness, so that you use whatever it is, it could be a dance routine. I like to dance, and I like to sing, and play. In private, on occasion, just because it's in the air. It's the vibe of the moment. And my mother was a dancer, I remember very clearly. And her words, I have to dance. Don't play me a rhythm because I have to get up and respond to it. Those are her words. And she found the healing in that. So, to each their own as far as that goes. But in terms of aloneness, I mean the potential of accessing a state of realization. Oneness. Heart is the universe. Universe is the heart. So then you are doing your drums, or you're doing your dance, or you're doing something, but then you're not doing it. And that's the beauty of it. That disappears. When that disappears while you're doing it, that's the real doing of it. In other words, it does itself. Yeah, it sounds kind of crazy for some people, first hearing it. But that's a reality for people of genius and creative intelligence. They want to access it so it can happen by itself. They don't want to have to be sweating about it. Because if you know the mind, then you know the mind is much more capable than yourself is. Hands down. And in the case of Olympians, that's what they're waiting for, because their self is burnt out, it's toasted, they've gone so many miles, it's not up to them anymore. Then they turn it over, and they hope turning it over is comparable to the wind catching the sail, pushing them up, and then they relax. They, wow, the wind is blowing now, fantastic. Or the current beneath the boat is taking over now. We're in the current now. It's easy as pie. The Tao. The flow of the Tao. Okay.
So, the question is, how do I help anybody through their, stuff that they refuse to let go of?
You might not be able to help anybody through what they cling to. So that's your problem, so to speak. Or that's your lunch. If you would have it that way, it's the meal you have a lot to eat. This is a never-ending feast for you of gunk, suffering, right? Right? Recycled BS. Right? And you have a taste for it, so you have to be thankful that you have something you can chew on for the rest of your days. And that's what your sacred purpose is for them, an ear see to unload into, and whose head doesn't mind having more garbage in it, as a matter of fact. And none of it's in the name of any kind of spirituality. Spirituality has nothing to do with that. Yeah. That's psychodrama. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 And for anyone caught up in that kind of pattern, we can't say they're practicing beings particularly, because how much of that is wood for the fire? And over a period of time, how much of that is, because it's actually wood for the fire, eliminated and let go of? Right. Right. When there's practice, there's release. There's recognition of the pattern and releasing of it. So for a person who's really practicing, you can come back to them in a certain period of time and see that they're not in the same place. They've gone beyond the appearance of what they were before. For real. So their now is very different from their now that was. Your sense of their now. Your now of them over a period of time is not what it is for them. So, I don't know that. It's like a photograph. So I'm not that person anymore. Because we're talking now about the purificational process, which is an enlightening one. See? Comment?
Yeah. I mean, most people are seeming to make some progress in some form or other, but it also seems like certain things.
Well, getting more information is not progress. Having more information about something, reading another book and having another angle to consider is not progress. It's more theory. Hopefully it's a more what is the word, entertaining theory, or maybe more educational for you. Maybe the language is better for you, for your ego, for your image. But if it's still holding on to the same garbage, what good is any of it? It's just a cover-up. It's covering it up. Or an attempt to cover it up. Practice is rendering oneself naked and being willing to function as wood for the fire of transformation. Because a deeper perception is showing up with the phenomena of yourself and your material world or your ego world. Saying, no, this has to go. Myself has to go. Myself is not real. My mask must be burnt. So there's nothing but light. So practitioners are those who actually walk the fire. The fire walkers. Or the fire breathers, in a manner of speaking. So that in time, they would be able to say to whoever they talk to, say, I'm not as heavy as I was before. I was real heavy last time. Now I'm light. Everything is lighter now. Everything's more inspiring, more uplifting now. I'm not as attached to all the melodramatic, traumatic, self-afflicted karma. See, I'm above that now. It's gone. It's gone now. Practice. And then when you get to that place, then it's maybe only practice then. It's not a thing, well, I did that. You did what? Oh, I used to practice like that. I tried that. So and I'd have to say, well, whatever you tried is not real practice. Real practice is an ongoing fire. It's never ending. And it's all that. Whatever you hear, whatever you sense, all the perceptions, then it's all part of the fire. And it comes through, you say it's not real, so it's worth letting go into the fire. Then we're in some kind of resonance with the Tao and the practice of the masters, who, if they're doing their job, they're not clinging to anything. They're not apprehending anything. See, they're not abiding in or on or around or about anything. See, they're nowhere to be found. In the middle of all the things that they have to do, that we can appropriately call their karmic situation. So you're in it, but not of it. Hello. You are the earth, but you're on the earth. You're in it, but you're not of the earth. Your body is. It's going back to the earth. But what about your awareness? What's its beginning or ending? When was it born? And in order to be true to that, you have to go down the line. Your mother gave you your first breath in your body. And her mother gave her hers. All the way back to the first mother, the first breath of the mother, right? Whoever that was, whether it's cross species or alien species, doesn't matter. Who was the first breath? Who was the first breather that enabled everybody else to be being that? And continuing it. Well, so the continuum has a beginning and an ending, or does it? Comment. So we're talking about moaners and groaners, right? We know too many of them, right? But they don't know that about themselves. They don't know that they're moaning and groaning. They don't know that. They don't have the objectivity to hear it and see it. So this is why I've said to people, you should tape your own talking so you can hear kind of rubbish and garbage you're spewing into this atmosphere here. So I don't say that. Oh, I would never say anything like that. Oh, really? Carry a tape recorder. Hear it for yourself. Put it on tape. Videotape it. Come in. People have to see themselves because their minds are not such where they can actually converse and then see what they're saying and what they're doing and then agree that it's, darkness. Right. Monstrous. Then you have those types, which I know of. I say, no, that's me. Too bad. Take it or leave it. Well, we want to leave that far behind. We don't need that. Nor does the person need it. But they need to know that they don't need it. Okay. So I say to be and not to be is the question. Not to be or not to be. To be and not to be at the same time is the big question. I've heard this before. Right, we always have to come back to the toilet. What would life be without a toilet? Or the bedroom? Because your questions are about the phenomenon of sex and desire. When the masters theoretically say it's desiring desirelessness, that's the highest desire. Well, for certain peeps, that is true. See? But that's easier said than realized. See? Because everyone is living the desire they were born into of their ancestors. So you're being used by ancestral influences to desire this, that, and whatever. So they're not really your desires. You are assuming they are your desires because you feel them in your mind and in your body. But you didn't create your body, your mother gave it to you, so it goes backwards. See? The truth of it goes back. I hate to say that for some of you that are not willing to accept the truth of it. See? My desires were not my desires. At least I had a chance to speak to my mother about that directly. I say, Mom, you know I got this from you. She says, yes, I know. You're my son. You should have those desires. I said, I don't want them. I have other desires. So I'm stuck with them. Yeah. So we had a nice little chat about that. She was very open-minded, very intelligent. Yeah. And I said, with my desires, which I have to use, I have to own up to them, I had to work with that. I said, So a version of my desires I had to transform over to a certain kind of discipline, military discipline. Because my desires before that were pretty much out of whack. They were like street, just pure street. But that street was not me, that was the blood, see, using me at the base level, see, as it does all adolescents, all pubescent beings. Right. Right? Your hormones are going crazy, right? And you think you are desire, and you know, everything is about that desire, and it's not you, it's using you. See? An advantage I had during that time was I was playing music, so I could see how that could be related to this kind of desire. Sexual desire and creativity are really very much the same thing. So you can manifest it through your art form if you have one. Or you can put it on the other person if you have another person to put it on, confused by your own desire. See? So you become more confused by merging and mixing desires. See? They're not eliminated. They're exacerbated. No news, no mysteries. Basic common sense. When you're unconsciously used by it, then you're liable to get into hot water as a kid. And then when you're an adult, you're still in the same place. But you're not, if you're indulging it, you're not remedying anything. You're just indulging yourself. And if you indulge to a certain point, then it becomes a craving, then, you know, you're in trouble. Then it has you completely. And so we would like then to assume that there is a normal range of self-indulgence relative to desire. See? Ancestral desire may not be your own desire, 100%. But of course, since you're in that line, there is some kind of agreement going on that you're at least part of the flow. See? To whatever degree, in terms of what I discussed with my mother, I said, it's too much for me. Mom. There's too much of that desire in me. But I had the music, so I was saved by the music to a certain degree. Everyone has to find their way around that creative desire and find out if it's really creative or if it is working against itself and thus it's destructive. Yeah. Self-defeating. Creative power. Yeah. So when you have people that are frustrated, well, that's because they haven't found the right way to express it. So then they turn to other people, and they add more to the confusion, but we're not going to say that's bad. Could be what's required, might be the best medicine. It's more confusion. More confusion evolving to the point of maybe crisis of awakening or crisis clarity. I say, wow, it's too much. And you wake up out of that. So it's too much, you reach a point, like a tantric point. It's so extreme. Something's got to give. Something changes. See? Sex is recreation. The fruit of sex is recreation. Whether it's in the sense of a child, because your life is never the same after that. But if you're having sex without children, you're still recreating something. So sex means away. Sex does not mean into. Sex means away from. Into sex, intercourse, is away from. It's yang. It's yin up to a point, then it's yang. It's yang. It's expansion. The whole purpose of that is not to hold on to anybody, not to keep anything. It's creative. It means it's expanding. It's going out from. And people say, oh, we had fantastic sex, but no relationship, it disappeared. I say, perfect. That's what we're supposed to do. Sex goes beyond. Sex, and then orgasm is like the greatest insult to any relationship, because they say, wow, I just had the best moment of my life. And then she'll say, well, I thought I was your best moment of your life. I said, no, not you, baby. That was. That was it. See? And as long as that's it, then the relationship is gone. It's already disappearing. It's already not able to do what you experienced. See? There's a paradox there. Your own sense of orgasm is a revelation. See? And the orgasmic revelation then is just momentary. See? It's like nirvana. You have a moment of nirvanic bliss. You say, phew, zero. It disappears. Because it's a moment. Then it's whose moment and how long is that moment? The moment's already gone. All of your orgasmic moments are already gone. They're all history. What did they amount to? How much closer did it bring you to the person? Not an inch whatsoever. So you need to know what it is. It's an illusion, self-created illusion that we're talking about. Comment. I've said enough for you to comment on.
So desire as
clinging. Desire is clinging. The desire for clinging. The desire for other and clinging to other. See? It's self. It is self. Self-generated. Self-created. Yes. And the desire for the urge to create is universal. See? It's not personal. It's impersonal. It has nothing to do with the other person except it shows up when other people show up under certain conditions more than other conditions, but it's not personal. And it doesn't make a marriage. It's not a marriage. It's a universal phenomenon. Right? The impulse to create, recreate, or the impulse to destroy, see? Transform. Go beyond the form. To reform. Or deform. See? That's change. And the fire of the creative forces of the second chakra are about change and transformation. When they are directed towards a higher purpose and a higher goal, whereas there's no change, then you're entering what I would call that's the spiritual path. Using change to go above change and beyond change. Not too many people want that. Because the more they dabble with the sexual emotion, the more they want, because they crave it. It's like the ultimate ice cream. The ultimate cake. But that's something that is in everybody, and it's the same thing in everybody. So nothing special. Nothing special. And always binding, because you can't get enough.
That particular sexual emotion, is that...
That's potentially creative emotion. You have to see outside of the box of your own body. Your own body is a trap. Self-indulgence, like masturbation, is a trap. All you're doing is exercising your right to pleasure and then exhausting your own pleasure. Because you have nothing better to do with it. So you exhaust it. You waste it. Waste organ, waste pleasure. That's a mystery you have to look into. And it's a problem you need to solve for yourself, because you want to get the most out of this life, so to speak. You want the most out of yourself, so to speak. Right? You want to feel blissful. How are you going to feel blissful if what your highest thing is in life is to waste yourself? Where's the bliss in that? Blisters. You're creating blisters for yourself. Maybe. We hope not. In any case, Hugh. Yeah.
So what does it mean to be addicted to other people, or to feel a really strong or poignant need for those types of connections?
For some people, at a certain stage in their evolution, it's great. They feel it's great. Mm-hmm. Next question. It's great for them. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But we need to know, what does it mean? What does it mean? Right? What does other mean? Right. What is self-creating that other means so much to itself? So, see, other is inside as self is inside. See? Mm-hmm. And so, in some cases, we may say that other is satisfying some kind of need. Yeah? Imaginary need. Is such a need for other, like being social in nature? It's a question. Social people, or social for, let's say, the purposes of not being themselves. So, is social then, or other, hiding something about the self? Is it covering up something? Is the self afraid of itself unless it has validation and acceptance from other beings? That's a possibility. Mm-hmm. It needs to be other validated. Right? So there's a schism in there somewhere. I'm not saying it's bad, but there's something there where you have to be at the mercy of otherness to the degree where you feel validated. Or, let's say, okay. You feel good about yourself. To be validated by others. Why can't you validate and cut the program of division and otherness down to a point? Cut it down to a point. Where you can tolerate other peeps, but not need to feel validated by them, because you know who you are and what you are, and it's okay. Mm-hmm. So yourself and otherness are already like okay, like this. Mm-hmm. 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 Complete. Other people are just other people, and yourself is just yourself. Mm-hmm. And if you're not around other people, you're okay. But if you feel compelled to be around other people for self-validation, you may not be okay, even though you feel better as an individual. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so this is what is meant then by the difference and distinction between loneliness, say, which is some kind of imaginary distress, disconnect, loneliness, right? That having other people is not going to undo, it's going to validate your loneliness. Or aloneness, which is a reconnection of the native circuitry of the heart is the universe is the heart. And you feel that with all beings. Not because you have a self or you don't have a self. Not because you need other, because there may not be any other. So you need no self and no other. Aloneness, all oneness, which is a level of consciousness, of peace. not imaginary or other, let's say, validated programming relative to society and other beings. See? And there are levels of compassionate unfoldment where the heart is unfolding into various stages of compassion. See, it would appear, where you really resonate with other beings and the suffering of other beings, not just the egomaniacisms of other beings, but the suffering of other beings, not the splendid and crazy, wacky, let's say, intellectual BS of other peeps. See, amusement of other peeps or the egos. See, the heart level is that kind of fun doesn't really count. See, because it solves nothing. It's not a solution. Where compassion is a feeling resonance with others, where you are able to relate to them as part of the solution. See, because you are not other than they are. So there's no other. See, and there's a connection. See, same heart, one heart. See, it's different. There's no self-otherness in that. It's just one heart. See? Consciousness. One love. Resonance. It's different. There's no BS involved in that. No amusement involved in it particularly. See? No imaginary imagery. No egoic imagery. See? At all. Nothing. Zero. Clear. Then it's spiritual. When it's clear. Can be seen that. Let's comment now.